Welcome to webinar 2, where we're looking at the topic of using our lived experience and converting that into formal attributes. So having a bit of a switch over or transfer with language. We thank everybody that's able to join us live today, and we are also aware that for other reasons people have wanted to participate, and they're going to access the recorded session. I'm going to recognise that we are meeting across many places in New South Wales in a virtual space, and I want to take this moment to recognise that we are standing upon the lands of many different nations. And I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of all the nations that we are meeting from, and pay my respect to elders past, present and emerging, and acknowledge the learnings passed on through care and kinship, and extend my respect to all other Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islanders carers joining us today. So thank you. As I said, I've now hit the record for the session, and I'm going to introduce the topic. As you probably are aware now, that we're looking at in the first session, we sort of talked about what the programs that were available in the Care Investment Program, and I'm joined today by my partner in all things education and employment related to carers, Alex White from Carers New South Wales. You're going to hear from Alex shortly. She's going to introduce us to the topic and kind of set the scene. And then I'm going to then take us into a different direction around the topic that we're looking at today. And then we're going to spend some time with our carer in career profile, and that will be Leila Frajat from University of Technology in Sydney. So sit back, enjoy. Please feel free to comment. We always aim to improve each opportunity, and this is all about investing in carers and providing a community basis for bringing together peers from education and employment and industry, to support your aspirations around work and study, and the fabulous community work that many of you are involved in as well. So we will improve based on, your encouragement and your feedback around how we can actually build on and build the capacity through the webinar series. Okay. Alex, I'm going to give you the opportunity now to jump in and start your presentation.
So thanks, Michelle. My name's Alex, for those of you who are joining us for the first time today. I'm the project officer at Carers New South Wales, working on the Care to Work project. Okay, so just as Michelle said, the topic is converting lived experiences into formal attributes. So this morning, I just wanted to be guiding you through this simple framework, which I think will really help give some structure and context to the idea to developing a resume. So a resume that achieves its purpose and speaks to the kind of work that you want to do. Okay, so the first step is simply to establish your work goal. So you need to start somewhere. Maybe you've got a couple of different ideas about for jobs, and that's okay. The next step is to go have a go at developing your resume. So this is that starting point, gathering together all the names of employers, names and dates, job titles you've had, qualifications, training you've participated in, paid and unpaid. So I like to call this the master resume. Don't worry too much about the style or the structure in the beginning. It's just about putting it all together in the one document. So from here, number 3 is research the job market. So this is a really important step, and the earlier you do this, the better in my mind. So once you've got an idea of what jobs are advertising, and what potential employers are looking for, it's much easier to then review and assess your work goal and make sure it's going to be realistic and achievable. So then lastly, a resume isn't really a one-size-fits-all document. So different industries favour different styles, for example, and more importantly, your resume needs to target the specific job that you're applying for. So I'll be providing you with a worked example and that you'll get an opportunity to have a look at today, and then in the sandpit session with Michelle, and from there on. So just moving to the first step. So one of the things I try to establish when I first talk with carers is what is your motivation for work right now. So it's both helpful for me to gauge your needs, and it's helpful to reflect back to you what's brought you here and what it is you're looking for. So the majority of goal setting advice really agrees that achieving goals requires a really good understanding of your underlying values, so your needs and your priorities. So particularly for carers, I think, if your caring role is active and busy, you're going to need a really strong sense of what's motivating you towards work in order to get there. So if, for example, it's a financial need, how immediate is this need for you to pick up paid work? Is it that you're craving social connection, new skill development, a break from caring? So many of you are looking to share your knowledge of what you've learned through your experience caring to help others. So knowing why you want to work really helps steer you in the right direction. So other things, so personal strengths, skills, interests. I often ask carers to think about what they do on a daily basis without effort, and then what do you want to do more of? So that's a good start. So your health and fitness for particular sorts of work is really relevant and important for many of you. So I encourage you all to know what your limitations are and really keep firm to this. So employment should be something that adds value, not takes value. So in line with this, it's good to know what environments make you happy. Do you prefer working in a team, or do you crave being alone in the home to get your work done, which is me right now? Perhaps you prefer being, a changing environment. You want to be out and about in the community, for example. So the last very relevant point for carers is your availability for work. So you might have particular time slots in the day where you need to be available for the person you care for. So you'll need to look for work in between these times. Maybe your commitments vary from day to day due to fluctuations in the health needs of the person you care for. So you'll be looking, flexible work's really essential for you. Maybe you're no longer caring. So then you're at a stage where you're able to commit to some fixed hours, so part-time or full-time work perhaps. So I've got some links here to some online resources that help with this initial phase. So if you're in this initial phase looking for work options, so firstly Job Outlook. It's an Australian government resource website with information, the whole range of information about careers like weekly pay, skill level required and future projections. So it's got a career quiz that helps you identify kinds of activities you enjoy and then comes up with job options to match. There's also a skills match activity that uses previous roles that you've worked in and comes up with some new job ideas using your transferable skills. So My Future is another. It's linked to training institutes and requires a login for a lot of the resources. However, I really like one of the, it's a careers bullseye tool, and it looks, it gives you an idea of level of training required for different occupations across different sectors. So this is just obviously a couple. There's lots of resources out there in this space. Okay, so moving on now to developing a resume. So I understand this can be really daunting and a bit of a roadblock for many of you. So particularly if it's been a little while between paid work. So many carers also feel that their priorities and needs have shifted away from previous careers, and they're really not sure where they stand. Some carers may not have had the chance to get started in a career before caring became a significant part of their life. So, so the fact is that most of us really, particularly women, have breaks and diversions in our careers, in our working lives. And this is actually quite well understood by employers on the whole, who are people, as it turns out. So what you really do need to do, though, is develop a kind of coherent story about your career journey and the different skills that you've learned along the way. So, and you have a really good understanding of why how you got here. So a starting point is what I like to call the master resume. So this is the document that includes everything you've done. So everything you've done that's developed your skills and capacities. So try to use a simple template. I like a combination style format. I've provided a link to a Muse article that talks about the different formats. There's lots of information out there, but basically, yeah, there's some different formats that you can follow, and there's plenty of templates available freely on the internet for this. And we'll also be providing some examples as I've said. So to start with, the personal summary, it's like an introduction. So career objective or something is an older term. So it's the opening statement that outlines your key skills and attributes, your experience, paid and unpaid you can include, and what you think you'll bring to the workplace. So have a go at getting all this together. You can list some additional key skills below this, and then you start with your work history in backwards chronological order, your education qualifications, volunteering, group activities, and depending on what you think is more relevant and more recent, usually what's more recent is more relevant. You can move the sections around. So we'll look at this in more detail after the slides. Okay, so researching the job market. So hands down, the most effective way to learn about the job is to talk directly to people working in the field. So if, for example, you're interested in working as a support coordinator, do you know anyone in the role? Have you asked them how they got hired? What's involved in the job? What's it like working there? What kind of education qualifications they have. So individuals working in the field are also likely to be able to link you to relevant information, like what courses to do, what licenses, any insurances that you might need, different pathways and approaches to achieving your goal. So Michelle's going to talk more to these different approaches in her presentation. So second to talking directly with people is researching employers and the job market more generally. So this is through online navigation of company websites and job search engines, for example. So you want to find out as much information as possible about the job, the industry, prospective employers as you can. Who are the key employers in your area, and how do they advertise and recruit new employees? So you can find out a lot about employers, and the more you do this, when you get to interview stage, this will all come in, very handy. So so I've provided just some links to two of the main job search engines that I like the most. So Seek and Ethical Jobs here. So please, I encourage you to become friendly with these websites. I don't recommend uploading the resume profiles. I haven't had a great experience of that myself. However, I do recommend that you invest some time to get to know the websites, and obviously using different search criteria and find out what works best. And so basically so if you know that you want to work in community and social care sector, then use that classification as a search criteria. I would encourage, mostly because employers and recruitment ads tend to use different job titles, which can be really confusing. But they're setting themselves apart in a competitive advantage with other organisations. So some employers, only advertise on some search engines or only internally. So you've really got to do look around and keep using different search criteria to make sure you're getting a good handle of the industry. Okay, so more on the research side of things. Now that you've orientated yourself around, so now it's assessing your work goals. So is it suitable and realistic? So are there advertised roles in your local area that you can find? And how many roles on average? What qualifications and experience are they requesting? So in other words, if there's some gaps in your experience, you're going to need to think really creatively about how you might address these gaps. And it's just much better to be aware of this before you sign yourself up to a course or you set your sights on a career that you might not be in your reach for various reasons. Okay, and just lastly, so you need to tailor your resume to each role that you identify. So a tailored application is what employers expect. So yeah, make sure you pick up on the key skills, or the keywords that they list as requirements of the job that you're applying for, and adjust your resume to include these words. So you might look at sort of highlighting different responsibilities and achievements from previous roles, and really adjusting everything around to really match exactly what the employer wants. So once again, if I haven't said it enough, it's really a good idea to research the company, their values and purpose and mission, and describe how you possess a desire to uphold similar values. So that's really important to align that, and for you also to know that you're going to be working in an environment that feels good for you. So look, here's some examples of different articles that are out there. As I said, there's a huge amount of information on the internet around recruitment and career planning articles. It can be a bit overwhelming, but I'm just trying to keep it simple here with these are some articles on taking a career break and what to emphasize there. So look, I just wanted to give everybody just an example of a really simple format of a resume. So this is more than an example of a master resume, although it's actually not very, very long. Sally's a 50-year-old carer for her son with autism spectrum disorder. And she's had a long history in accounts management, but hasn't worked for 15 years since the birth of her child. She's feeling like she's at a stage where she can re-enter the workforce. So this is, obviously some ideas from the carers that I've met through this program, where similar to where some of you find yourself. So this is an example of putting together a bit of a career summary. So she's choosing to disclose her break caring, but putting it very much, framing it in a positive way, experiencing personal growth and her understanding of disadvantage, and that has led her to where she is. She's done a qualification in disability services more recently, and she's wanting to combine her experience, so her caring experience, and have a sort of probably a obviously part-time work is essential for her still, and between certain hours, so part-time and flexible. So then you can have a look. So just like the education, I think is more relevant, is more recent. As I said, you can move these sections around, and then this is an example of how you can put in experience caring into a work experience. So disclosing that it's for her son. and some of the skills, and as workplace skills, really. And then a long history in one area. So perhaps when it comes down to it, she won't need to include all of that information. And then I've just done an example of so I did a job search yesterday using ethical jobs to find a sort of a possible fit for Sally. So I found a job using the Disability Services search criteria and ethical jobs. And I've just gone along and highlighted. So they've suggested that they want multiple staff to fulfil future current opportunities, part-time contract basis. So that's promising. Obviously, calling the organisation to find out a little bit more about how flexible that would be. It would be probably important. And then what I've done is highlighted some of what to look for in regards to the keywords. So passion to work in disability sector is listed here as the criteria, and to have customer focused approach. So obviously here's where you need to then do further research and see that if your values align. So skills in financial management are essential criteria. Attention to detail, problem solving, communication skills. So these are the keywords that you pick up and then you work into your resume. So in addition to the resume, picking up on these selection criteria is something else you'll need to write up a cover letter and selection criteria. So the next webinar, I will be focusing on those two pieces of work. So an application usually includes the resume, the cover letter, and selection criteria of sometimes within the cover letter. So I'll put that over to you now, Michelle.
Thank you so much. So it's quite interesting to have a look at that type of pathway, and I think that will be a great template to work off as a master resume while we're working on translating the language from what we're probably doing as an informal role, and how we might start to put some weight around that in terms of the language of employment. And there's a lot to consider. I know with my own employer, certain job roles are not assessed by a human, and that there is a piece of software that reads resumes and job applications. So there's many sort of different aspects to consider, which is apart from I guess what's going on for us right now, and perhaps some predictions around the economic side of things in our country right now. So where I'm going to take us for the remainder of the webinar is into perhaps you not going to wait for somebody to advertise something or try and fit yourself into their preferred criteria, but you're actually going to make your own role in for work. And so that's what I want to focus on now, is having a look at the other side of the fence, I guess, and that is the world of self-employment and independent work styles and things like that. So let's have a bit of a look at that. What I am conscious of is that we've now hit 10:30, and I know our carer in profile recording takes about 20 minutes. So if you are leaving us as planned at 11 o'clock, don't be alarmed that I've kept the session open, because I will record it all in the one go. But I also am conscious that we've run a little bit over time this morning, perhaps because it's such a meaty topic to look at and everything. So apologies in advance that the carer in residence interview is going to go past 11 a.m. But don't be alarmed if you have the recording and you are still keen to hear the rest of that interview. You can jump in towards the end of that recording when I send you the link and just catch up on the bit that you missed. So I'm going to talk to you now about taking from where Alex has left us, and just some of the I guess the intersections of what she was talking about, and as I said, my focus is about you carving out a role for yourself rather than looking at roles that perhaps somebody else has prepared. Okay, so again, Alex is sort of talking about individual examples of the things that Sally was doing. I want to start, no surprises to NDIS carers. I want to start sort of dropping them into categories with you, okay? So I've got a bunch of categories up there, and while I talk to this slide, you can see that I've left some question marks, and for those of you that are able to, I'm happy I think it'd be great if you added to this list by thinking about categories where you would put particular individual tasks that you do daily, weekly, monthly, once a year into, and think about what that category heading might be. See if you can catch me out on what I've missed in this list. So when I think about my carer role, I think about things that are sitting under legal sides of things. So it might be that I'm completing applications or, acknowledging consents, or perhaps even, that higher operational level of guardianship of an adult, and perhaps enduring power of attorney and those sorts of things. So there's a lot of tasks that sit under the legal side of things, and I think if you go away and reflect from today, I challenge you that you'll have at least one legal task this week that you will complete in your carer activities. There's the things that I would call the emotional category. So, the accidental counsellor, the mediator, the dispute resolution, all of those types of things. Things that sit with education, skill building, following plans, implementing, techniques, and, lifting people's progress, recording people's progress, training, all of those types of things. Research is all the stuff I often do very, very late at night, where I'm sort of cruising around looking for both the currency side of things, like we talked about in the first sandpit session, but also looking at where there might be new research happening, new opportunities, and even people sharing the same thoughts that I have about where there might be gaps in research happening, things like that. And sometimes I'm doing the research for the person that I care about, but sometimes I'm actually doing it for people that are in my network, okay, is where that research is sitting. The physical things, okay, so the transport and the, meal preparation and the scheduling and personal care and so on, the technology things. Again, it might be the communication. For us, it is the communication tools. It could be, again, accessing social connection, at times right now, switching from a face-to-face environment into a virtual environment and so on. Financial things, budget balancing, savings plans, planning for the future, all of those types of things. The flat out planning, so both the formal and the informal side of things. So, those individualised plans that you set up that perhaps, the support crew are working on, right through to, the big articles, you know, the NDIS, the My Aged Care, the CHSP style planning, community development. So again, you know, my networking activities, my Zen time, my giving back to others, you know, contributing, those types of things. The advocacy elements of again, you know, reviews, following up, making complaints, raising concerns, giving feedback, all of those types of activities, and the communication activities. So right through to from an individualised perspective, right through to perhaps needing to, last week I was giving feedback to the NDIA on the role of support coordination and responding to the IAC's recommendation for the role to be enforced as an independent role. So, you know, all types of layers and levels, non-verbal, AAC and so on. So lots of things happening there. Alex, you'll have to let me know if anybody's come up with some things in the chat pod. What I am going to focus on today is I'm just going to pick one element out of this and we'll take a bit of a journey around that. So I've picked community development as the one. You can see I've got the two symbols either side. I've got my purple heart here. The other things that, you know, I could move my purple heart to the things that I like or really enjoy about my carer role. And then I've got my grumpy face over here, the things that I don't like doing. And for there's a number of people in the audience today that know me quite well, and they're probably thinking, yeah, she's going to say financial is going to have a grumpy face against it, and you'd be right. And the purple heart's going to be sitting with community development and communication, my big strong enjoyments. Okay, so I have picked just one. Okay, and what I'm suggesting, which is where Alex is going with your master resume, but really sort of doing a bit of a dig in and think about if you had to employ somebody to be you. I want you to think about what would you be writing that they will need to live up to in order to be you? Okay, so writing your own carer job description is a great place to start doing that brainstorming and mapping of the activities that I do. And so I've put a couple of places there. One I've already dropped in the chat pod, the Care Careers. So what the Care Careers quiz does is it uses visual representations. You're not answering questions for starters, which can be a nice change of pace. But the other part of it is that it will use that data to actually point you in the direction of what you're, in terms of what you've entered in, it'll actually point for you objectively which might be the strongest fit for you, and it'll do it in an order. And I know lots of people that I've done it with over the years have sort of been quite disappointed that it's pointed them to administration rather than direct support style roles. But you know, it is responding without any you know, any interference into that data that you're inputting. So if you're doing that from a genuine perspective, what it actually tells you is you may not like what you hear, but it is actually telling you that. And if you've done the rounds with a few jobs and thought, nah, not this and that sort of thing, just reflect on that perhaps you don't always know best about that, and sometimes you know, a piece of you know, an algorithm may in fact be a way that you might freshen your approach and just go, yeah, I don't know if I'm a believer yet, but let's just see what the algorithm's going to tell me. So with the community development love that I have in my carer role, I started to then reflect on what I actually do. So in terms of the job description for me, a little bit different to Sally's story, and again, this will be very much an individual preference, but it also we will have a webinar talking about disclosure. And you know what's been the lessons learned about carers that have disclosed. And so I've actually gone a little bit different to Sally. I haven't done a lot of personalising of the language that I've used here. So I've said that you'd need to be both an academic and a social scheduler for 2 Gen Z clients. So the 2 people that I have the informal caring role for are are 18 and 16, and so that's where they're sort of sitting in terms of their generational space. I organise and distribute information about augmentative and alternative communication, so that's the focus of the activity that I'm doing in terms of community development. I'm the administrator for 2 AAC, so Augmentative Alternative Communication Facebook groups with a greater than 5,000 members, and research international and domestic trends in alternative communication. I volunteer at a community centre toy library. I fundraise for Technical Aids for Disabled People, so TAD, which does a lot of work with converting toys. It's kind of like the men's shed, so to speak, for the retired engineers. And so they like to do a lot of adjustments from a technical perspective to make things more accessible. And I teach community English, so completely informally, to my Persian neighbours. So there's the things that I've thought about that I'm doing on a daily, weekly, monthly basis in community development. It's given me like an initial sort of insight into, okay, and I can keep adding to that list, but remembering if I'm applying for a job role, I just want some foundation there, and then I'll have a think about what the ad that Alex has shared has got in it, and so I'm not constantly writing from scratch again. So I've got some things down there. It's not an exhaustive list, but I don't need to worry about that until I start to get into the technical side of what I'm doing. Okay, awful slide with that picture there, but I'll do a quick translation. So as I said, I wanted to shift our focus now from the things that are already advertised that someone else has constructed and shift us into a space where we might actually carve out our own job role, okay? And so, a sort of, a term that's used around this, and it's not to offend any organisation, but just to give you that sort of focus of that new economy, often known as the gig economy, okay? And let me tell you that the data will suggest that of all the generations, baby boomers do really well with gig economy, even though it's something that has come out of the millennial time. Baby boomers take really well to gig economy. So and Gen Zs, which are my lot, the lot that Alex were talking about, I think we're getting more familiar with it and things like that. And there's no one demographic, but let's just talk about the gig economy. So what do I actually mean when I'm saying that? The gig economy is very much about doing tasks and and doing them in a way that works for the employee and the customer, rather than a third party like an employer driving how things are going to happen, and in what way they're going to happen. So the types of job roles, just to give you that context, is thinking about working in a freelance situation, working as a contractor, working in the sharing economy, so the Airbnb, use my driveway, all of those sorts of places, the peer-to-peer space, so where you're cutting out that middle market and just dealing directly. So I am not I know for sure that higher up will not see themselves as this type of employer, but that peer-to-peer higher up's actually a good example of that, where you're using that platform to meet the customers directly, okay, rather than somebody in the middle saying, oh, you would be a good fit for this customer and that sort of thing. You can both find each other. Independent workers, so people that are working to the beat of their own drum, working to the skill set they have, and carving out a market segment for themselves. And again, you know, another term that's used is sole trader. And none of these are specific to the care industry. They go across every single industry and workforce. But you know, we'll cast a bit of a light on how we can use our lived experience into the role. So that awful diagram that I have put the reference there for, as in I know it's awful because being able to see it on your screen might not be so flash. So let's just do a bit of a breakdown of this. What it's suggesting is that there are round about just under a third of people that actually recognise that they work from home, either for part of their role, all of their role, or anything in between. So if we think about ourselves in the informal carer role, we're often working from home. So feel comfortable that working from home is actually you know, many people's workplace, not a carer only workplace. Many people share office space. So again, if you've got a home office or just even a home hot desk, like we have, you know, many people are sharing, you know, a desk space, for example, as their workplace. Lots of people are using their smartphones in work. So whether they have a physical building workplace, whether they are going from many workplaces in the one day, you know, more and more we're using that smart technology of phones and tablets and things to be an essential item for our work. So for us as carers, many of us are actually doing the same thing in our carer role, okay? We're recording our contacts and our calendars and all of those types of things there. And probably, yeah, I guess the other one that comes up in our carer demographic is around flexibility in work and not being able to take on the traditional full-time work. And so again, they're suggesting that around about 20%, this was done before the pandemic, 20% of folks from Melbourne are all that are working full time, and around about 26% in Sydney. So, you know, that again is saying that there are lots of people working in a less than traditional full time capacity. Okay, so a lot of people are asking for flexibility in their work role, and we need to stop seeing ourselves as different because we're carers and actually just go, oh yeah, we're just part of the 80%, you know. The fact that we're doing it in a non-remunerated way right now is maybe a difference for us as well, and would be in some cases, but also the fact that we want flexibility. There are many people in the workforce seeking that flexibility. Okay, okay, so thinking about my goal of having a community development role, if I was thinking about it from this gig space, so this, you know, contractor or independent worker type thing, I wanted to just give you some examples of spaces that are happening from either a care experience or people that have worked in the care space, like so paid workers that have reinvented themselves through the gig economy. So just again, I'm more than happy to put all these down as actual resources links for you to have a look at. But I use a lot of visual prompts so that I'm not reading to you from something, but I can speak to you verbatim, and the visuals work for me in terms of prompting. So up the top there, I've just clipped a piece from a Facebook website that I follow, a family blog that I follow called Have Wheelchair Will Travel. So this family are essentially working. They're travel writers, and their point of difference in the space is that they're writing in collaboration with a family member who uses a wheelchair, and their experiences of both domestic, international travel, and so they write a lot of travel advice and things like that. Gig Buddies has come from the paid work side of the space. So again, Gig Buddies is about, remember when we could go to large events, people that wanting to go out to things in the community, and rather than take paid support, find somebody that shares their interest, and for perhaps the entry fee, somebody joins them in a non-paid capacity to attend the thing that they enjoy doing. Kudos is a Canadian one that I've worked on, which is kind of like a red balloon of hosted experiences for people with disability that want to try. And this was a collaboration between carers and the paid workforce in responding to that whole, how do I know as an adult what I might like to do when I've had limited opportunities and education experiences to go and try. So this is about accessing the community in real time when they're really doing these activities, and so it's not a paid activity event, it's actually going to a hosted event from somebody that enjoys doing this, and you get to go and try it out. So it's not a day program where you keep going back and all of that sort of thing. It's about go and try before you buy. So, lots of people have fantasy about wanting to have a horse, a pony or something like that. There's somebody on there that offers you the opportunity to come and spend some time experiencing what it's like to own a horse, and that then could then influence whether you continue to go on that journey, or if you look at perhaps reshaping, maybe I don't want a horse all the time, but I'd like to be involved in something with horses, those types of things. The growing space, I think the group is largely quite familiar with the growing space. So a carer invention of a social enterprise that provides support coordination, education and training that's South Australian based, so again have a real market in the whole lived experience part of support coordination and the experience of independent support coordination. One Community, a partnership that actually came from a different space than disability, and had saw a real opportunity in our independent and free market space to bring people together for formal networking opportunities. So they have a range of products sitting under One Community that support people to connect and network together. Nest is a way of, is a forum for people with disability to access, accommodation that recognises access and inclusion needs. So it's kind of like a housing hub, but it's specifically talking to some aspects that people with disability may be seeking in terms of either physical, communicative or sensory sensory needs in rental and the purchasing market of homes. Aruma are another one that specialises in independence in support coordination. The Spicy Boudoir is, again, a user-led organisation for people with disability to access aids around sexuality and that sort of thing. So that's another sort of area that in a free market space, has been able to give some alternatives to adults with disability. Disability services consulting employ a lot of carers and people directly with the lived experience, to write, investigate, provide an information service and a training and education service. And down the bottom there, not an Australian one, but Fathering Autism. So the story of this man and his daughter who lives with autism spectrum disorder, and it's a family vlog. So they're running a living story to I guess educate, provide information, and share their experiences to reach out to other carers. So when I'm thinking about what's happening in that community development space, that's just a little taste of what's actually going on there. Getting started in the gig economy. So because we're close to time now, I'm going to probably leave us at this slide. And then when we come to the sandpit session, as Alex said, we're going to focus on the resume, that master resume, and then I'm going to take you through some ways where once we've got that content down in the master resume, it's easier to bring it across into other types of formats. And so I want you to have a look at some of the other types of formats, especially excuse me, if you are thinking about, I like the sound of I could make my own thing here. So one of the things you are going to need to do is to form your own pitch, to develop your own profile and things like that. So that's what I'm going to do at the sandpit session. But the main sort of areas that we'll look at in this gig economy is the concept, the fact that the resume becomes your elevator pitch, how to create that visibility for yourself, because that's key to working in a gig economy, and that we're going to be looking at how many of you are networking and very actively. Let's take our lessons learned and let's share them, but I also want you to really focus on your networking from here on in, as considering all of your networking as workplace insurance, okay? Because there really isn't a job where having a network and having options to access within a network doesn't become one of your greatest allies in your success, in being able to manage your time, stay on track, watch your competitors, and so on. I'm now going to turn the recording on and introduce you to Layla Frajat from the University of Technology. She is the second term position of carer in residence, and she's going to talk to you a bit about how she got there, as well as what actually happens in the role. Thanks so much. I'd now like to welcome Layla Frajat, who is the brand new carer in residence at the University of Technology, Sydney. And congratulations, Layla, on the position. And thank you for sharing your time with us to talk about your role, as well as what has led you to choosing this as your next step in your career. So we're going to recognise that you have taken the role over from Tanya Teague, and so you're quite new into the role, and as well as I guess taking the the asset that she brought to the role into this next future direction for the program. Would just maybe, if you would be happy to start by perhaps sharing a little bit about how you identify as a carer yourself.
Yeah. So thank you for having me on. So I am a carer for my younger brother. He's 2 years younger than me, so he's 21 and I'm 23. And he has autism and a mild intellectual disability. So I've kind of always, in some capacity, I've always been a carer for him. In my senior years of high school, he was experiencing some mental health issues on top of everything else, and my mum was struggling to access, health and education services because English isn't her first language, and so I kind of had to step in a more administrative and formal caring position for him. And so I was trying to juggle, completing my HSC and being a carer and just trying to know where I wanted to go in my own life. And so that was about 5 years ago. And since then, I've fallen into a rhythm with my brother and my mother where we kind of care all together, where me and my mum share that caring responsibility together. He's at home 24/7 and requires 24/7 care, so we just try and balance that. We try and balance the responsibility between each other, and yeah.
Thank you. Okay, so I have congratulated you on this role, and perhaps if I know that the audience would be really keen, it is a unique role still, and it's in its early phase of development. Can you tell us a little bit about a bit more about what the role entails as a carer in residence?
Yeah. So the care in residence role this is the second year that it's running. And what it does essentially is it brings in the lived experience of my experience as a carer, and it tries to inform aspects of the research that the Centre for Carers Research is doing. And so I work with the Centre for Carers Research on various different projects where I come in and I bring in that lived experience and try to ground the research a bit more.
Excellent. Thank you. So the position was advertised, was it back in July?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. So I guess I saw the circulation come through my own networks and then shared it with my networks. I'm interested about how you found out about the role, and I guess what motivated you to apply.
Yeah. So I actually found it on the job site Ethical Jobs. I was looking for social work, research work, because I'm currently in my honours year of uni, and I found that I became really interested in what research can do to help impact social issues, I guess. So I was really motivated to try and find work where I could use my research skills that I'm still developing and kind of build up on that. And yeah, I was just lucky enough that I came across this position on Ethical Jobs, and I found it a really interesting intersection between, it appreciated the importance of lived experience and my experience as a carer and what I could bring to a position. It really respected that, and it also respected my need for flexibility in work, and really understood that. So that was one of the key motivators to apply for this job, but also it gave me the ability to upskill my research skills, and at such an amazing institution, and the position itself, I didn't explain before, but the position itself is also focused on developing my professional skills, upskilling me as a researcher. So yeah, I was incredibly motivated to apply for this because it's such a great stepping stone to so many different career. Yeah.
Could you tell us a bit about what the interview and the application process was like for you?
Yeah, so there were a number of selection criteria that we had to specifically address, and some of them were like a bit more technical, like your writing skills, like demonstrate, explain how you're a strong communicator, but others were more specifically focused on your lived experience. And what I really liked was that I didn't have to disclose the situation itself, so I didn't have to speak to my own personal situation at that point in the application. But yeah, I was just, I was, sorry. Sorry, I've forgotten the question.
That's okay. So then when it comes time to, you've been offered an interview, was it like a panel style situation, or were you put through some activities?
So it was just an interview. So it was an interview between the previous care in residence, Tanya, the head researcher for the Centre of Carers Research, Paula, and Sarah from CarersNSW. Mm-hmm. So it was interesting because I was being interviewed not just entirely by the Centre for Carers Research, my employer, but actually also some of the people that we work with, which I found really interesting. And it was about like a 30-40 minute long interview, and it was just kind of consolidating aspects of what I had said in the application, so that application was quite comprehensive. On top of my cover letter and my resume, I also had to submit a 5-page document addressing each of the selection points, selection criteria points. So yeah, it was just kind of like fleshing out aspects of my application in the interview and just getting a feel for whether I was a right fit for them.
Yeah. Great, thank you. I think at times it's really good to have a little bit more, insight into the actual, mechanisms that happen as well, because, especially for people that might be thinking, that they're identifying with what you're talking about, or they know somebody that they think would also be very keen to choose this pathway, and sometimes some of that insight or what actually goes on leading up to it, it's really interesting to hear as well. So I know that you've not long out of high school and that sort of thing, but I was also wondering, you've talked about lived experience and how you identify as a carer. Have you had any other work roles that you think would also contribute to your strength as having this asset?
Yeah, definitely. So in my first year out of high school, I became a disability support worker, and that was I got that position entirely through my lived experience as a carer for 16, 18 plus years. And in that role, I really expanded my understanding of what caring is, and got to support people that had disabilities that my brother didn't necessarily have. So it really was, while I have my own lived experience, I think I was really challenged to open my mind up to just how broad and diverse caring and people with the disability industry is. And I found that position was not only just helpful like that, but it helped me understand how to navigate the NDIS system for myself and for my brother more efficiently. I knew what I had to say and what they were specifically looking for and how to interact with support workers for my brother himself.
Great.
Yeah, so I found that position just so, it was amazing, and I really valued having that opportunity. But yeah, I think also it's important to note that when you're working so closely to your own, an experience that's very similar to your own, you can kind of have emotional burnouts, and it's important to, I think, balance that and not feel guilty for needing time away from that, or if it's too much. I think that's really important to also note.
Yeah, I agree, and I like that. When you've had that time in the role, that you're recognising that there is an enormous amount of diversity in people's experiences, as well as perhaps a diagnosis type or something like that, and so and also being able to, I guess, test and reflect, or just recognizing sometimes I can see similarity in my own home life, and other times I'm quite inspired by what other people have done and achieved, and lessons learnt from them, as well as perhaps even finding I guess also finding, okay, so that was a spot, and I've had an opportunity there, and I can sort of take that and then look at where to next for me, because there are so many angles to that support our community, and whilst some are valued strongly, like direct support, some of these intermediary and periphery roles are what really drive change. But also, as I think you're alluding to, being able to perhaps create a little bit of separation from what you're doing well at home and what you can continue to do well, and perhaps being able to have that separation in the workspace where you're still contributing to what's important to you, but there's some distance between where you can manage. I guess in saying that, even so, you talked about the flexibility of the role, and being able to, create that flexibility around your care responsibilities as well. What does a day look like for a carer in residence? And we never say what does a typical day, because largely most people will share that their job roles are anything but typical. But I guess, what does a day look like for you in this role?
Yeah, so genuinely every day is different. I have to say, I come into the office, or it varies even from location. So sometimes I'm working from home, sometimes I'm working in the office, and then from the office, we're not even working in the office. We will be, meeting with a whole lot of people throughout the day. So I think consistently there's a lot of talking to different organizations, different people within the uni, outside of the uni. So there's a lot of chatting, there's a lot of discussion about what caring is and how trying to address gaps in it. Mostly, I think I'm still new to the role, so I'm still exploring just how much I can do, but there's a lot of reflection in this position. So every week I'll write up my critical reflections of what I've been doing at work for the week, and the themes that have kind of arisen through discussions with everyone, and then I try to kind of bring them together in a series of blogs. So there's a lot of listening, speaking, and then reflecting on those discussions, and then kind of turning that into something a bit cleaner, something a bit more refined, I guess, as part of those blogs. But it's a very fluid process. So yeah, every day looks very different, but I think if you're the type of person that enjoys having conversations to kind of expand your understanding of something or explore different areas of it, this role is very suited to that.
Yeah, excellent. That's fantastic. We are just putting a link to your blog on the chat pod now, so that people will be able to go and view that. And I guess probably the last perhaps to sort of finish our interview today, we've just had a conversation this morning about where there is capacity for the university sector or the higher education sector to become involved in the project that we're driving through the Carer Advantage, and so we're quite excited to see where that goes along the way. And I can hear from your conversation about the role that I can see that there is great opportunity. A lot of our audience are perhaps looking for more I guess diversity in choice of job roles. And I think, like you're saying about the research and the communication or representation part of your role, that's what people are aspiring to, and often building really good skills through their experience with peer support and peer education in their community. Probably just to finish off, and this is without notice, so I really appreciate you are identifying as a Gen Z carer, and so it's young carers are an interesting space in that a lot of people don't identify, and that I know that it is a target area to look at supports. There has been low-level supports in the past in relation to young carers. Did you access any young carer supports in your lifetime?
Unfortunately, I haven't. So I found that a really missed opportunity, to be honest, because Carers New South Wales have a range of different resources and even, I think, grants to help support young carers through education and training. And I wish that I was aware of these accesses, and these opportunities. I did very much engage with the university's equity and diversity support services. So they kind of helped me, when I had too much university work and everything at home was too crazy, I did rely on that. But I think it's really important that young carers or people that are caring, young people that are caring for someone, to not be afraid to identify as a young carer and to access these supports, because they are there for them. And if I wouldn't want anyone to think that their situation doesn't warrant any additional support from whether it's TAFE or uni or workplace. So yeah.
Excellent. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to thank you again very much for being a part of the Care Advantage, and I think this is probably just the beginning of this opportunity, and we probably would be really keen to check in with you, in the following year as to what's been happening with the project. And in the meantime, we're we definitely will, make the audience aware about the blog so they can watch your journey as you go along. And I know there is some some of the work that Tanya's done there as well to have a look at. And yeah, so thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you all very much for being able to stay on and join us for that last bit with Layla. Thank you so much for your time today, and I look forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks.